We are in the midst of a golden era for African players at the pinnacle of the Premier League. This season is set to be no different from the last few campaigns, with high-profile African players set to feature across the top of the league. Colin, let's look first at the title race. Liverpool, Manchester City, some guys we paid a lot of attention to last season. They're going to be back in action this term. I'm talking about Mohamed Salah, Sadio Mane, Joel Matip, Naby Keita of Liverpool, and Riyad Mahrez of Manchester City. Which of these two groups of African players do you think will set to be champions at the season's end?
Well, Ed, I like your fascination with Riyad Mahrez. But having said that, I think Manchester City have still got, as good a chance as any to win the Premier League. But you know what? Liverpool have set the bar so high this past season that it's hard to even sort of think about anyone overhauling them at the top. And when you think about that, you look at the output from Sadio Mane, Mohamed Salah, Naby Keita, and we could even throw in an honorary African, Divock Origi, in there. So I think, all things considered, it's tough to look past Liverpool, but this is the Premier League, and it's still possible that we could see a charge from elsewhere.
I really think Manchester City are going to come back strong this season, and I really think Riyad Mahrez is going to have a big role to play. At 29, he's really one of the elder statesmen now of this Manchester City team. I think he's proved over the last 2 seasons that he belongs at a club of this stature. Last season, he got 11 goals in the Premier League for Pep Guardiola's side, and I'm really excited to see what he can make of this third campaign at the Etihad Stadium.
In fairness, I do agree with you. I think this will be a decisive season for Mahrez, and irrespective of sometimes the digs I get at you, Mahrez has been a very good part of the City side. Even though I think I would have loved to see him start more games, but I do think that going forward, especially after I was a bit worried really when word was that Leo Messi was coming to Manchester City, but now he's not coming anymore. I do think that Mahrez will get a lot more playing time, and I hope that he does better than his 11 goals and 9 assists from last season.
I was somewhat surprised to see at one point Mahrez linked as part of the deal going the other way in any move to bring Messi to the Etihad Stadium. And I think while it would have been a shame to have curtailed Mahrez's time at Manchester City, I would love to have seen him in that new look Barcelona front line. But let's turn our attention to Liverpool. Mohamed Salah, he's hit double figures for goals for the last 3 campaigns for Liverpool. Can he make it 4 in a row, do you think, this term?
Look, he's got the quality, no doubt. I'm just a bit worried about the turnaround time for the Premier League this season. We saw him in the Community Shield. He was, a very pale shadow of the Salah we know. And I just hope that, he gets enough rest time between now and probably, mid-season when things begin to heat up a little bit, because I didn't quite like the looks of what I saw. I think it may have been there was plenty of fatigue in those legs, but I do think that he has the potential to have another good season. It's all the tools are there, and he's shown over and over again that he's capable of doing it. So yeah, I do believe that we might see a big season from him.
Particularly in terms of fatigue. I'm not so optimistic about Salah this season as you sound to be. I think personally, in terms of fatigue, we had the problem at the 2018 summer with the World Cup, him being injured in the Champions League final, being rushed back by Egypt. Last summer, he competed at the African Cup of Nations. So this is a guy, and obviously this year there has been no real summer break. Here's a guy who has been going pretty much non-stop now for all these years. And I just think critics are pointing to a decline in his goal output, 32 goals, then down to 22, then down to 19 last season. And at this point, I think I would be surprised if he can maintain the form we've seen from him over the last few seasons heading into the 2021-2022 campaign.
Yeah, look, in fairness, almost every other player at almost every other top club has the same problem. Played a lot of games, not enough rest, not enough of a summer break to come back to. So I think we'll see that playing out a lot with the top teams. With those on the lower end of the table who don't quite have the same number of games, haven't had a sort of extended season that the top teams have, you might see a bit of an improvement. But yes, at some point, when you also think about the fact that 2021 is going to be a very, very cramped year in terms of football, whether it's European football, international football, everything is just going to come together in such an unpredictable way next year that I'll be surprised if players, hit the same highs they hit this season.
Do you think there's a danger that Liverpool may find themselves over-reliant on their African players this season? Last term, I feel like they were fairly lucky with injuries. They didn't need to rely on their supporting casts of forwards too much. Whereas this season, there's been a lack of credible attacking reinforcements brought into Liverpool. And I just wonder whether Sadio Mane and Mohamed Salah will be able to shoulder the goal scoring, the attacking burden that we've seen from them in recent campaigns.
Well, there should be. I mean, if we look at this past week, we've seen European players being involved in the European Nations League, while on the other hand, African players have had a bit more rest time, so to speak. So you do tend to get the impression that with the season starting this weekend, you'd have the African players a bit more coming in fresher than the European players.
Two players at Liverpool with a major point to prove, I believe, this season. Naby Keita and Joel Matip. Keita started 9 games for the champions of the league last season, came off the bench in a further 9. I think Matip only featured in 9 games during the Premier League winning season. Do you think it's already fair to say that Keita has been a flop at Anfield?
I don't think so. Look, he's got some really strong competition. I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had a bit of an injury, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me there. But, I do believe that he still has plenty of time to get himself, sort of established within that whole Liverpool setup.
For me, I think Keita has been one of the big disappointments of the last 2 years in the Premier League, mainly because this guy is such a unique talent. He is a player who in the Bundesliga with Leipzig demonstrated both the attacking qualities and also the destructive defensive qualities that really make the great central midfield box-to-box operators. And I really hope that this is the season when he finally comes into his own at Anfield. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the chasing pack, the teams who are likely to be competing for those Champions League berths. Arsenal, Tottenham, Manchester United, they all feature African players. Which of these 3 do you think will be most impressive this season? And of course, Chelsea with new boy Hakim Ziyech.
Look, I like the looks of both Arsenal and Chelsea at the moment. I mean, you look at the players that Chelsea have gotten. Don't forget that, Chelsea last season had the whole transfer ban affecting them, so they couldn't bring in as much players, or couldn't bring in players, so they had to promote from within. This season, they've just gone out and splashed it out. I mean, 200 million and counting. And Hakim Ziyech, for me, is one of the most exciting players, they've brought in. Arsenal have always had an African core around them, and this season they are led by Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang. They've got I wouldn't call Bukayo Saka for now. He's still English, so to speak. But you know what? I like the looks of Hakim Ziyech at Chelsea.
Yeah, Ziyech certainly adds a yet another jewel, an African jewel to the pinnacle of the Premier League. But personally, I'm really excited to see what we get from Nicolas Pepe this season. A lot of critics during that first campaign, that 72 million price tag weighing heavy upon his shoulders. But I think there have been some signs of encouragement under Arteta. And I'm really hoping that perhaps he could be Africa's standout performer in the Premier League this season.
I do hope so as well. But I think his major issue has been consistency. And, having looked at him we thought when the season resumed after the coronavirus break, we'd see him burst out sort of like bloom like a butterfly. But, that hasn't happened. It really did not happen. And I'm hard pressed to see him doing much better as the new season kicks off.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN Plus.